The first sign that something was wrong came when the rain stopped listening to the sky. It fell anyway, a thin, patient mist drifting downward while the clouds above remained pale and unmoving, like scenery painted by an indifferent hand. Dr. Elias Moore slowed his steps, the jungle floor sucking softly at his boots, and wiped his glasses for the third time in a minute. The moisture returned instantly. The air here felt dense, heavy with a scent he could not immediately place: burnt wood, crushed leaves, and something mineral, like old stone warmed by fire. He had been following rumors for most of his adult life. Not the dramatic kind that promised lost gold or ancient curses, but the quiet, almost apologetic ones that appeared at the edges of official records. A missionary's journal that abruptly stopped mid-sentence. A trader's letter that mentioned, marked people who speak with borrowed mouths. A colonial census that listed an entire population as relocated, then crossed out the destination and replaced it with a single word: gone. Every trail had led here, to a stretch of jungle that maps treated as an inconvenience rather than a place. The forest grew stranger the deeper he walked. Vines hung in deliberate arcs, as if placed by hand. Trees leaned inward, narrowing the path until Elias felt as though he were being guided rather than wandering. His equipment felt heavier, the straps biting into his shoulders, and more than once he had the unsettling sensation of being watched without seeing movement. Birds were absent. Insects hummed, but even that sound seemed muted, like noise heard through thick walls. When the trees finally parted, the village revealed itself without warning. Elias stopped short, heart thudding. Circular huts stood in a wide ring around a clearing of pale earth that looked almost bleached. The ground bore no weeds, no stones, only countless faint impressions of feet layered over one another. There were no fences, no visible weapons, no smoke rising from fires, yet the air smelled unmistakably of ash and oil. Figures emerged from the huts as if they had been waiting just out of sight. Men and women of varying ages stepped into the open, their expressions calm, unreadable. Their skin was dark and smooth, marked with intricate designs that flowed across arms, faces, chests, and legs. Elias's trained eye told him immediately these were tattoos, but something about them felt wrong. The lines seemed too deep, too absorbent, swallowing the light instead of reflecting it. He felt a chill despite the heat. An elder woman stepped forward, her posture straight, her movements economical. Her hair was white, braided tightly and threaded with small seeds and bits of bone that clicked softly as she walked. Her eyes fixed on Elias with a weight that made him feel examined down to the marrow. When she spoke, the sound of her voice raised the hair on his arms. It was a language he recognized. Years earlier, in a university archive, Elias had listened to a damaged wax cylinder recorded by an anonymous explorer. The voice on it had spoken in this same rhythm, this same cadence, before dissolving into static. He had assumed the language was extinct. His reply came slowly, awkwardly, his tongue stumbling over sounds he had only ever heard through distortion. The elder listened patiently, then nodded once. They did not ask why he had come. They did not ask his name. Instead, a young boy stepped forward and placed a wooden bowl at Elias's feet. The water inside was cloudy, streaked with fine gray particles that swirled when the bowl settled. The elder dipped her finger into it, then traced a brief symbol on Elias's wrist. Her touch was cool, steady. The mark faded almost instantly, leaving no stain behind. "This is how we remember," she said, her accent thick but careful. "We carry our dead so they do not wander." Before Elias could respond, they turned away, as if the exchange were complete. He was led to one of the huts and motioned to sit. Inside, the space was sparse but clean. Objects hung from the walls: woven cords, carved bones, small pouches tied with sinew. Everything smelled faintly of smoke without any trace of soot. As night fell, a fire was lit in the clearing. It burned low and steady, producing heat and light but almost no smoke. The tribe gathered around it in silence. Elias sat among them, his notebook forgotten in his bag, his academic detachment slipping away. The designs on their skin seemed to shift in the firelight, not moving exactly, but revealing new layers the longer he stared. The elder spoke again, and others joined her, adding fragments, clarifications, memories. Elias listened, sometimes understanding words, sometimes only meaning. When someone died, they said, the body was burned with specific herbs and tree resins chosen for the life that had ended. The ashes were not discarded or buried. They were ground carefully, mixed with oils pressed from seeds that grew nowhere else, and blended with soot taken from sacred fires that had burned for generations. This mixture became ink. The tattoos were not ornamental. Each line, each curve, was a vessel. The dead were not trapped, but carried. Their voices softened over time, blending into the living, guiding rather than haunting. Children received their first marks when they could walk. By adulthood, their skin held the accumulated memory of centuries. To demonstrate, a man across the fire touched a symbol etched along his ribs. His posture changed subtly, his voice deepening as he spoke of a flood that had once swallowed the valley and reshaped the land. When he finished, he smiled faintly, as if waking from a dream, and the moment passed. Elias felt his pulse in his throat. This was not metaphor. This was not ritual storytelling. This was something else entirely, something that defied every boundary he understood between history, biology, and belief. Awe washed over him, followed closely by dread. What kind of burden did such remembering place on a human mind? What happened when memories contradicted each other, when grief accumulated faster than it could fade? He asked why they had vanished from the world's records. The elder's eyes shifted toward the jungle, toward the unseen border where their memory met the outside world. Because remembering makes enemies, she said quietly. Those who forget can be ruled. Those who remember cannot. The fire crackled softly. Elias realized then that he was not merely observing a lost tribe. He was standing inside a living archive, one that had survived precisely because it refused to be written down. Dawn arrived without ceremony. The light seeped into the clearing slowly, thinning the mist until the huts appeared as silhouettes first, then solid forms. Elias had not truly slept. His body had rested, but his mind had drifted in shallow, restless loops, replaying the voices he had heard by the fire. They still echoed faintly, as if lodged behind his thoughts rather than fading with waking. He stepped outside and noticed the village was already awake. People moved quietly, deliberately, their bare feet leaving no sound on the pale earth. Some gathered herbs at the edge of the clearing, others tended small fires that burned with the same unnatural restraint as the one from the night before. No one spoke loudly. It felt less like a morning routine and more like preparation. The elder approached him as he stood watching. In daylight, the lines on her skin were even more striking, delicate patterns branching outward from older, darker shapes. Beneath, layers upon layers. Elias realized then that age here was not marked by wrinkles alone but by density, by how much memory a body had learned to carry. You listened well, she said. It was not a question. Before he could answer, she gestured for him to follow. They walked to the far edge of the clearing, where the earth sloped gently downward. Leaves had been carefully arranged in a circular pattern, hiding something beneath. The elder knelt with effort that seemed ceremonial rather than frail and brushed them aside, revealing a flat stone lid carved with symbols similar to those etched into skin. She lifted it. Beneath lay a shallow bowl filled with fine, pale gray powder. Unlike the mixture he had seen the night before, this ash was lighter, almost luminous in the morning light. Elias felt a tightening in his chest, a pressure behind his eyes, as though the air itself carried weight. A death? He asked softly. The elder shook her head. A choice. Others gathered silently around them. From among the crowd, a young woman stepped forward. She could not have been more than 20. Her arms were bare, her skin unmarked, smooth and unbroken. Her expression was calm, not resigned, not fearful. She knelt beside the bowl and opened a small pouch at her waist, removing a needle carved from bone and polished smooth by use. Elias understood before anyone explained. This was an initiation, but not one demanded by age or law. It was consent made visible. The young woman dipped the needle into the ash mixture and pressed it into her skin. There was no flinch, no cry. As the needle moved, tracing a simple line along her forearm, Elias felt something shift violently inside him. His vision blurred. For a moment, the clearing vanished. He smelled rain on dry earth. He heard laughter, distant, layered, overlapping. Grief rose in his chest so suddenly he staggered, grabbing the nearest post to keep from falling. The sensation passed as quickly as it came, leaving him gasping, his heart hammering. The elder steadied him with a hand on his shoulder. You feel it because you are listening, she said quietly. Most outsiders never do. They see marks. They hear stories. You hear echoes. The young woman finished the final line and wiped her arm clean. The mark remained, dark and precise. She exhaled, her shoulders relaxing, and for just a second her eyes shone with something Elias could only describe as recognition. Later, as the others dispersed, the elder sat with him beneath a tree whose roots broke the surface like knuckles. She spoke of why they had endured when so many others had vanished. When invaders came, burning villages and erasing names, the tribe learned that what could not be written down could not be confiscated. Memory carried in flesh could not be seized without destroying the bearer, and even then, fragments survived in those who remained. You were not meant to find us by accident, she said. You have followed absence all your life. You noticed what was missing. Elias felt exposed in a way no academic peer review had ever managed. She was right. He had always been drawn to gaps, to silences between dates and footnotes. The idea that entire lives could vanish without trace had haunted him more than any documented atrocity. We are fading, the elder continued. Not because we are dying, but because the world outside grows louder. Forgetting spreads faster now. We need a carrier. The word settled heavily between them. They did not ask him to stay forever. They did not demand loyalty or secrecy. Instead, they offered him a place among their memories, one mark, one fragment, enough to prove they had existed. Enough to anchor their story somewhere beyond the jungle. Elias argued with himself silently. Every principle he held screamed against it: objectivity, distance, the danger of becoming part of what he studied. But another voice, quieter and older, reminded him that no history was truly neutral, that every archive was shaped by what someone chose to preserve. He rolled up his sleeve. The elder prepared the ink herself, mixing a pinch of ash with oil until it formed a dark, glossy paste. She studied his arm, then began. The needle's bite was sharp but brief. Heat spread outward, then cooled, sinking deep. As the symbol took shape, Elias felt memories brushing against his mind, faint, respectful, like guests entering without announcement. He saw a river that no longer flowed, felt pride in survival, sorrow in loss, and a fierce, unwavering refusal to disappear. When it was done, the mark rested on his forearm, small and unassuming. It felt heavier than any artifact he had ever carried. You will leave, the elder said, wrapping his arm gently. You will tell them we existed. Many will not believe you. That is acceptable. Memory does not require belief to endure. He left before the mist fully lifted. The jungle closed behind him with unsettling completeness, swallowing the path as if it had never been. Days later, when he reached civilization, his photographs showed nothing but blurred shapes. His recordings crackled with silence. His report was dismissed as myth, his career quietly derailed. But at night, when he traced the mark on his arm, he remembered. And sometimes, just before sleep, he heard voices, not demanding, not desperate, only present, carried forward, line by line, in living flesh.